welcome to Industry Insights. My guest today is Bryan Armentrout, founder of the Food Leadership Group. Hi everyone and welcome to today's episode of Industry Insights. My guest today is Bryan Armentrout. And for those of you who don't know who he is, which I think there aren't a lot, please Bryan, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bryan Armentrout. Brief introduction, I own a consulting firm in Loveland, Colorado, here in the US, the Food Leadership Group. Been doing that, Stephanie, now for about a little over 5 or 6 years. My main experience is in industry, leading quality assurance for large consumer packaged goods companies here in the US. Also, the US divisions of some large French companies as well. And I'm very grateful to be here today. Thank you for having me on.
Well, of course, it's my pleasure. And besides all of these things that are already a lot that you're doing, you also have a Friday chat, the Food Safety Chat, which is a live conversation with one guest of yours. It's about an hour and it's being streamed on LinkedIn, I think Facebook and Twitter or X, I guess.
YouTube.
X now.
No Facebook, but the other ones.
Yeah.
But and yeah, so you've been a guest on my chat as well, and those have been always amazing chats. So it's great to have you on that as well.
Yeah, thanks. It's been great. So, but now we'll talk on my show, and I'm really happy to have you today. And it's way less time than we're given, so let's just jump right in. Today, we wanted to talk about training, engagement of the C-suite of a company, and how important the top-down approach is, and what you would recommend from your experience and from your background. Just share your knowledge, share your expertise, and as a little teaser, there is going to be a huge surprise at the end of this interview. But Bryan, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. One of the things, and my dog appears to be upset about something, so hopefully you can't hear that. I think that kind of just illustrates the unexpected nature of what we do. And there's always going to be things that pop up that will take your attention or move you in directions that you're not quite sure about. And you need to take these things into account. And when you're looking, Stephanie, at food safety and how you manage these things in your company, you always have to remember to take the perspective of the person you're dealing with, in that they may not know or have your perspective. Often we get caught in what I call our own bubble. We have our jargon and our vernacular, and we know what FSMA means, and we know all these type of things. That doesn't mean the leadership in your company does. Most leadership in companies, especially in the food industry, may not even come from food. You may have a CEO running your company who comes from the automotive industry or something else, and they probably don't even understand what you're looking at. In a lot of situations, if you are in a company that's doing what it should be doing at the executive level, they're thinking far out, way into the future. They should be thinking where this company needs to be in 3 to 5 years. They think big picture. A lot of times in what we do in food safety and quality assurance is more tactical, a lot closer in to what needs to be done. So that education piece and teaching them, and as we like to say, managing up, is extremely important.
Yeah. I think the big picture, as you said, is also an important thing to have in your mind, but rather focus on what's right there ahead of you and which situation you might be in at this moment. Looking down at that is so important as well, because that's what you're dealing with at the moment, and that's the product that is going to leave your manufacturing plant, or that you fill into glasses, and some might break, and then you might have foreign material in your food, and that's what you of course want to avoid, most importantly. And so having both views, but kind of like more the current view, is essential. Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Stephanie. It's your overall objective when you're talking with the senior leadership in the company around these things is to make sure that in their minds they are recognizing that, so that they're, as a leadership, you're always thinking about the finances of the company and strategy, and should you buy this other company that you're looking at, all of these type of activities. One of those little buckets that you want senior leadership thinking about is food safety, and making sure that they understand that this is a priority that needs attention just like any other.
Yeah. And often brand protection is completely forgotten. in that thinking, because I mean you can go out of business because of the reputation you're losing and the trust you're losing, and consumer trust is so hard to regain. And if you don't have that in the back of your mind next to purchasing other companies and then doing stuff like that, yeah, it could be over sooner than you want it to be. So,
Yes.
and I think specifically the quality department, from experience, I mean, they have such a hard life. They
Mhm.
have to kind of like fight against so many obstacles in their daily business. And what they need most importantly of all is the support from the C-suite. What do you think? How could that support, or what could that support look like?
Right. So I think a big piece of that, Stephanie, from the senior leadership is everything that you're trying to do originates with the senior leadership. So we talk a lot about food safety culture. The culture of the company starts with that senior leadership. So making sure that you're educating them on that, and importantly, that you have the resources to get these things done that need to be done in the company. When you work in food safety and quality assurance, Stephanie, you're in a unique position in that you get to, as I like to say, you get to stick your nose into lots of other things. And
Mhm.
that's because in quality, you're part of building the systems in the company and helping to build out the overall strategy and approach internally relative to those aspects. And senior leadership can understand that. And teaching them relative to this of how these things can be instituted company-wide, to your point, protect the brand, grow the business, and be successful are extremely important for them to understand. I think, yeah, the difficulties that you were alluding to, I think a lot of those originate with the very nature of what we do, in
Mhm.
that we are successful when nothing bad happens.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, senior leadership just assumes that that's just going to continue, and they don't see all of the work that happens behind the scenes to make that happen. One of the key phrases I always watch out for when working with companies is if I'm having a conversation like this and I'm talking with senior leadership, and I can tell they're really starting to lose interest in what I'm saying, or they're kind of looking off or thinking about other things, is if they say this phrase, "Well, Bryan, we've never had a problem before." Right? That's a
Yeah.
very, very dangerous position.
Yeah, we
So
all know there will be a problem eventually.
yeah, and if I hear that, I'll immediately stop them and say, so what you're saying is past success equals future success, and you're depending on that luck to continue. And
Mhm.
then they'll realize, hopefully, the
Yeah,
flaw
hopefully,
in their
exactly.
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And yeah, and support can be in can be carried out in so many different ways. And I think what's a very important way to support your quality team is to help them be prepared and know what they need to do when things go wrong. And yeah, as we said before, things will go wrong. And this
Mhm.
doesn't even necessarily have to do with bad leadership or bad hygiene or not following requirements or rules. I mean, it just happens, and we all know it will. And the better a company is prepared for that situation, the easier and the faster they will be able to act upon that, and yeah, in the end, help protect or even save lives of the consumers.
Yes. Why do cars have seat belts?
Yeah,
Are,
exactly. Very,
are we
very,
planning on it?
yeah, very easy example. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there are so many out there. It's just, and it goes very closely together with food safety culture, right? I mean, the culture of a company stands for how leadership correspondences or supports their different departments. And in our conversation, most important is a quality team. So yeah, absolutely right. And we have a friend of ours who's very big into food safety culture. Austin is yeah, he puts a lot of effort into that. And yeah, your approach is, I would say, also goes into that direction. So what would you recommend leadership? How can they be more aware or more supportive? What can they actively be doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think part of this, Stephanie, is understanding, and we realize this in quality, but senior leadership needs to understand this as well. You're a role model and people watch you. So if you're visiting one of your food production facilities as a leadership in the company and you don't know how to wash your hands properly, or you think that it's okay to wear your jewelry because you're the CEO, or you don't put a hairnet on, or things that you can undo all of that hard work, because if the CEO doesn't have to do it, why do I? The CEO is the role model, and everyone needs to get that message. And a lot of times those messages, Stephanie, are not verbal. You know,
Mhm.
it's like that saying as a parent, do as I say, not as I do. That doesn't work. No one,
No.
everyone knows that doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to be a role model. That is, yeah, I think that's actually the most essential thing that you can act out as a leader and just show your staff, yeah, this is how it's done, and that's why it's important. And of course, next to that, other than being a role model, communicate in a way that your staff will understand you. I mean, you have different levels of education in your staff or in your team, and so you need to, yeah, communicate so that everyone can understand what it is you ask of them, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're doing here right now.
Mhm.
We're communicating in a way that's getting our message across without being technical and full of jargon and other things that really don't mean anything. One of the key aspects of success for being a really good food safety quality professional is being able to communicate and get these ideas across to them for people who don't know what you do, and being able to do it in a way that is not pretentious or adversarial. We're here to help educate and teach, as you know, our topic for our talk here today
Mhm.
is that is a huge part of what we do and how we get these messages across and how we teach and how we use that information to get to those objectives that we want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we haven't talked about this before, but it just came to my mind. Could you maybe give an example, a real life example from your work experience, when you have talked to a company, and you know what challenges you might have run into, or yeah, how you communicated and how you trained a company, of course, without giving any names, but just, you know, from your real life experience. Can you share an example?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Here's a real life example that applies no matter the level within a company. If you believe in quality assurance, that simply writing something down and issuing orders and sitting in your office is going to get you to what you want, you will be very, very sad.
Yeah.
Here's a perfect example of that. Early in my career, Stephanie, so let's say, for example, in food plants, something that is a constant challenge of getting people to do correctly is wear their hairnets. And you need to make sure, right, that you've got the hairnet on correctly and that you're covering all your hair, and you don't have, if you're a woman with a giant hairdo, that you've got everything covered, or a man with a big beard, that your beard is covered, because that's important. The
Mhm.
why of that is important. We don't wear hairnets because they're pretty. We wear hairnets because they keep the hair out of the food. Extremely important.
Yeah.
And early in my career, I would make this mistake, Stephanie. So I would go and visit my plants, and I would go on a tour of the plant, and I would look around. And let's say that I was in the dock area of the plant, and there's a worker and he's unloading some things from a truck and whatever. And the hairnet isn't being worn correctly. It's kind of, it's off to the side, and it's not, and there's hair sticking out. I would, in the past, go up to that person and say, "Hey, you," and they'd be like, "Hmm, what, me? Yeah, you. Why aren't you wearing your hairnet correctly, right? And doing this, rah, 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 right?" And they'd be like, "Ah," and they would fix their hairnet and say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then I would walk away. That person would then turn to one of their coworkers and say, "Oh, who was that?" "Oh, that was Brian. He's the vice president of quality at corporate. He comes here maybe once a month or so. Don't worry about him."
Yeah.
Right? I thought I was doing, I'm showing them, we need to do these things. 100% wrong.
Mm.
Wrong. Here's how you do that. And here's the valuable lesson. If you take one thing from this talk today as a quality professional, this is this. I changed my behavior.
Mhm.
Same scenario. That person in that plant, hairnet wasn't quite right. I would not go talk with them. I would find their supervisor and say, hello, are you the supervisor of this person? Yes, yes, Paul works for me. Hi, nice to meet you. My name's Brian. Oh, I'm Steve. So, Steve, you're responsible for this entire area. Yes. Wonderful. You're doing a really good job here. Thank you. Thank you. There's one slight problem that I need your help with. See that young man over there? Yes. Is there anything that doesn't look quite right? Oh, is his hairnet isn't being worn correctly? Yeah, that's correct. It's not. Why is that? He works for you, right? Yes, he does. Can you please fix that for me? Yes, I can. And I would walk away.
Mhm.
That conversation after I left, Stephanie, was the real conversation.
Yeah.
So now the supervisor would come up to that employee and say, hey, what are you doing? You know how to wear that hat, correct? You know who that was who just yelled at me? I didn't really yell at him, but who yelled at me?
Mhm.
That's the vice president of quality for the entire company. He came to me and told me that you were not wearing your hairnet correctly. That's embarrassing. You are hurting my career and you're making us look bad. You know how to wear that hairnet, put it on right. And by the way, I am watching you, right?
Yeah.
The next time I came to that plant, did I have a problem with hairnets?
Probably
No,
not.
no. The critical distinction in that story, Stephanie, is that is the relationship. Who is your boss, right? So
Yeah.
for that, in that example, the supervisor, he is the person who controls the activity of that person, controls their scheduling, their work hours, their raises, whether they even work there or not.
Yeah.
That supervisor is absolutely critical. So as we talk about the different levels in the company, you have to get that correct. You have to understand that that supervisor is the person who determines your destiny of whether you're successful or not in
Yeah,
that plant.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And you cannot just jump right into that relationship and kind of take over. And yeah, yeah, because they don't know you. They might not ever see you again, and they will just be annoyed by you yelling at them and going like, "Well, who's that guy? What does he have to tell me?" And so,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely makes a ton of sense, Brian, if you talk to the supervisor and have him or her reach out to the person doing stuff wrong. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's a great example. Thank you so much for that. And I'm sure everyone who listens can learn a lot from the conversation today. And I'm pretty sure that if anyone has a question, people can reach out to you directly. You're happy to have a conversation. You're happy to support and help. I know that from you, Brian. I mean, we've known each other now for, oh, I don't know, 2 years maybe. So
Oh, at
quite
least.
a while. Yeah. So really, yeah, if I know one thing, then it's how supportive and helpful you are and how engaged you are and how important food quality is to you. And that led you to, I think we're now kind of heading towards the surprise. So what did you turn out to do, Brian? And
Yeah,
what's the
so
surprise?
a few years ago, and I think I read somewhere, Stephanie, that in a survey, 80% of people said that they would like to write a book.
Mm,
And I said, I think I want to write a book as well, because part of what we do in food safety and quality assurance is what we're talking about here right now is teaching and helping other people.
right.
And a book is a great way to do that. And I put together a book on what I learned. And so that example of that supervisory interaction is one of the lessons that I learned in my career. And
Hmm.
so I put together a book from the perspective of um, the challenges I had in my career, and I'm sure a lot of other people do, is when you are good at what you do. When I started off in food, I started off as a microbiologist in the laboratory. So
Hmm.
testing samples for
Yeah.
salmonella and these type of things. And I was very, very good at what I did. And eventually someone notices and they promote you.
Hmm.
And now all of a sudden, you're not in the laboratory, you're sitting at a desk and you have other people now reporting to you. And that's it. They give you a computer and they leave. No
But
one
you're
teaches
not
you.
prepared, right?
And you're just like,
Yeah.
what do I do? What, and you have to sink or swim is the old saying.
Yeah.
And you have to figure your way through that. So in writing this book, this was my attempt to hopefully help people in this space to avoid some of the mistakes I made and hopefully
Hmm.
then use that to accelerate their growth.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So people can reach out to you. Although this is a recording, but still your email address will be shown on the post, and so people can reach out to you. And oh, just in case, this is how the book looks. If people can see it here, oh no, not really good.
Oh, there we go.
I got it. I read it. It's great. Very thankful that you send it over to me. So yeah, whoever wants to learn more, wants to hear more on Bryan's thoughts and ideas, and is interested, just reach out to Bryan, and yeah, I'm sure you'll figure something out.
Yes,
So,
and so for the special surprise that you were hinting toward, so for my book, for the first 5 people who respond, I will send you a free copy of my book.
oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Bryan. I'm really sure people will appreciate that. So yeah, looking forward to, and it will be interesting to see who the 5 first ones are. Um, but doesn't really matter as long as people, yeah, get to read your book. It's a great one. As I said, I read it already. It was a great thing to, yeah, to put my mind around and just learn and read what you had to say from your experience. And I'm really thankful that you took the time today, Bryan, to share all your expertise and knowledge to our global network, and just yeah, participate and engage and listen to what we were talking about. And so it's been great. It's been my pleasure as always, Bryan. It's always great talking to you. So thank you for being on my interview series. And yeah, looking forward to whatever's ahead of us.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. And the work that you're doing in food safety is very well appreciated as well. And I'm very happy that you invited me to be on here. So thank you.
Of course. Yeah, my pleasure. Have a great day, Bryan. Thank you.
Well, thanks, you too.
Yeah, bye
Thanks,
bye.
everyone.
This was today's episode of Industry Insights with my guest, Bryan Armentrout. Thanks for your attention and see you again soon. Bye.